This happened just a few weeks ago. I'm a senior in high school, and I've lived in Nevada my entire life. There's not much to do out here, but one thing my friends and I always got into was urban exploring. We searched for forgotten places, abandoned buildings, old tunnels, dead malls, anything left to rot. We'd crawl through broken fences, snap photos, sometimes sneak up to rooftops or wander down into basements. It wasn't about breaking anything. It was about the atmosphere, the feeling that something was waiting in the silence. The one guy in our group who always found the weirdest, creepiest spots was Charles. Quiet, a bit of a mystery. He'd just show up with locations we'd never heard of, places that didn't even show up on Google Maps. I stopped asking where he got them. One day, he sent us a screenshot from some sketchy Instagram account. Barely any followers, grainy photos, creepy comments under every post. The caption on one picture simply said, "Dozens of abandoned mine shafts in the Mojave Desert, if you know where to look." Charles claimed he had already messaged the account owner, and whoever was running it had sent him some rough coordinates. That was all he needed. From the moment he saw it, he became obsessed. So that Saturday, it was me, Charles, and our friend James. We took my Wrangler, perfect for desert driving, and followed a pin drop to the middle of the Mojave. No real address, just an empty stretch of nowhere. The farther we drove, the more the road disappeared. We were off the main highway, deep into lifeless terrain. No signs, no buildings, not even power lines, just endless desert. I kept glancing at my phone even though we had no signal. James, growing more annoyed in the back seat, kept saying this was a scam, that some internet troll had sent Charles on a wild goose chase. But Charles refused to turn back. Just as we were about to give up, James pointed towards something off to the right. At first, it looked like more rocks and dust, but as we got closer it came into focus. A decaying wooden structure, half buried in a slope. Its entrance partially caved in, but behind the splintered beams was darkness, a hole. Man-made, uninviting, definitely a mine shaft. Charles didn't speak, he just pulled out his phone, dropped a pin, then looked at James and muttered, "Told you." James called it luck. But even I had to admit, it was insane. Out here, in the middle of nowhere, and somehow we'd actually found one. I parked just off to the side and we all climbed out. Charles had even brought masks for us. As we got closer, the structure looked worse. Rotting wood, rusted bolts, the entrance barely holding together. Charles picked up a rock and tossed it inside. We waited. 1, 2, 3 faint clinks. Then nothing. A silence so deep it felt like the earth itself had swallowed the sound. He turned and said, "If you fall down there, you're not coming back." And with that, we started the descent. It wasn't a straight drop, more of a steep slope. Still, the ground was loose. Every step felt like it might give out beneath us. The old wooden supports groaned softly, but somehow they held. And the deeper we went, the colder it became, and quieter. Like even the air was holding its breath. It was really eerie down there. So quiet, so still. We couldn't even see the light from the entrance anymore. It was like the earth had swallowed us whole. Eventually we reached what felt like the bottom. The shaft leveled out and opened into a wider tunnel that split off in multiple directions. It looked like something out of a nightmare. Old support beams looming every few yards like skeletal arms holding the tunnel in place, rusted tracks half buried in dry dirt, and a thick layer of dust blanketing everything like untouched ruins. Scraps of wood and twisted metal were scattered across the floor, maybe the remnants of carts or tools once used, now long forgotten. The air was stale, like the breath of something ancient still lingered there. That's when I realized just how thankful I was for the masks. We picked a tunnel and began walking. No one said anything. We weren't looking for treasure, we were just exploring. But there wasn't much down there. Whatever had once been worth finding was long gone. Then we heard it, a faint sound, somewhere deeper in the tunnel, something being dragged. I thought I imagined it, until I saw Charles freeze mid-step. James turned to us and made a motion to kill our flashlights, and suddenly we were standing in absolute darkness, just listening. The sound came again, a soft scraping noise, like metal being pulled across stone, or old wood grinding against the earth. Echoes made it hard to tell where it was coming from, but one thing was clear. It was getting closer. We stood frozen in the dark, counting heartbeats. 30 seconds. maybe a full minute. The dragging sound continued, growing louder, heavier, more deliberate. It wasn't close yet, but that didn't make it any less horrifying. Then James's flashlight flicked on by accident, just for a second, and then off. I wanted to kill him. The sound stopped. Everything went completely, unnaturally silent. And then a sudden metallic clang echoed from deep within the tunnel, like something heavy had been dropped. What came next chilled my bones, a scream. Something inhuman, but not entirely. It sounded like something twisted, something pretending to be human. A high-pitched demonic wail that echoed through the dark like a curse being unleashed. We didn't wait, we ran. Didn't care how loud we were anymore. Our boots pounded against the dirt, hearts racing out of sync. Behind me I could hear something, footsteps maybe, or the mine itself waking up. I don't know. I just knew I couldn't stop. I was in the back, trying to keep up. Then I tripped. Hard. My shoe flew off and I stumbled forward, nearly falling again. I didn't stop to grab it. I just kept going, barefoot, pain shooting through my foot with every step. Up ahead, Charles and James were already scrambling up the incline. I practically threw myself up after them, barefoot, bleeding, gasping for breath. Each step drove new splinters into my skin. It was excruciating. If adrenaline hadn't taken over, I don't think I would have made it. When I finally burst out into the open air, my foot was wrecked. James and Charles had to practically carry me to the car. I couldn't drive, so James took the wheel. I barely managed to slam the door shut before he floored it and sped off. I don't think we were followed, but we sure as hell weren't going to stop and check. We drove in complete silence, not speaking until we reached the nearest hospital. I thought I was going to pass out from the pain. They gave me a tetanus shot, cleaned the wounds, pulled out the splinters. Even then I couldn't walk right for days. A few days later, once I was walking without limping too badly, James mentioned something he hadn't told us before. He'd lost his wallet, probably near the mine shaft. He didn't say anything at the time, but now he wanted to go back. James figured it was worth going back, just to the entrance, he said. No way were we setting foot inside that shaft again. So the three of us drove back out, using the pin Charles had saved. The sun was out, birds chirping, and everything looked completely normal. But the second we parked near that mine, the air changed. It felt wrong, like the ground remembered us. Of course, James's wallet was nowhere in sight, but we did find something. My shoe. It was just sitting there a few feet from the mine's entrance, as if someone or something had placed it there intentionally. I hesitated before walking over. When I picked it up, my stomach dropped. It was torn to hell, ripped and shredded like it had been chewed on. And I mean literally. There were teeth marks, deep ones, jagged edges. Entire chunks of the shoe were just gone. We didn't stick around after that. None of us had a rational explanation. Sure, you might be thinking it was probably just a homeless person living in the mine. But if that were the case, how would they even survive down there? There was no food, no light, no sign of life. What would they be eating? Charles tried DMing that Instagram account again, the one that posted the mine's location in the first place. They never responded. It's going to be a long time before I do any urban exploring again, especially not in the desert. I've always been the rugged type. Nature's been my thing for as long as I can remember. While some people vacation in resorts or hotels, I'd rather be deep in the woods, casting a line or setting up a tent. My girlfriend Tiki is the same way. That's one of the reasons we hit it off. 6 months in, and we were already talking about our next adventure. A few weeks ago, we decided to switch things up. Instead of the usual forest or lake trip, we chose the desert. Open skies, dry silence, total isolation. It just seemed different, worth experiencing at least once. The real draw? Stargazing. That's our thing. Even back when we first started dating, we'd drive out past town just to lie on the hood of my truck and watch the sky light up. So when we found this spot far from towns, no light pollution, it was perfect. I found the place online. Remote, legal to camp, no amenities, just raw desert and a couple fire rings. Exactly what we wanted. We loaded up the truck and left early Friday morning. The last hour of the drive was nothing but dust and dirt roads. No cell service, no houses, not a single soul. Honestly, it was perfect. By the time we reached the site, the sun was already dipping low. It was everything we hoped for. Warm golden days, cool nights, endless stars overhead. We'd sit by the fire, pass a joint back and forth, talk about nothing important. And yeah, fool around in the tent, it was part of the magic. The kind of peaceful escape you wish you could bottle up and keep forever. But both nights, we heard something, far off in the distance. A low, drawn-out sound, somewhere between a howl and a moan. Not human, but not completely animal either. The first night, we both froze when it echoed through the stillness. Tikki looked at me, eyes wide. "Did you hear that too?" she whispered. I nodded, but we laughed it off. Told ourselves it was probably a coyote or a mountain lion. Something normal. Same thing the second night, same time too. A little spooked, sure, but we chalked it up to desert wildlife. This place had its own ecosystem. We weren't used to the sounds, it wasn't going to ruin our trip. But then came the third night, and I woke up to something else. Footsteps. Just outside the tent. At first it was soft, just a couple faint crunches outside the tent, like someone walking slowly over dry dirt. I held my breath, listened. It wasn't an animal, it was too steady, too deliberate. Each step sent chills crawling up my spine. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I wanted to grab the flashlight, shake Tikki awake, say something. But I couldn't, I was frozen. My heart thundered in my chest and every muscle felt locked in place, like my body was screaming run but refused to move. The steps didn't circle the tent, they just stopped, a few feet away. And then, nothing, just silence, a long aching silence. I stared at the top of the tent, eyes wide, barely blinking, waiting. Whoever or whatever was out there didn't make another sound. Not even a breath. I don't know how long I waited, minutes, hours. Then all at once, click, that sharp, unmistakable sound of a lighter, and through the fabric of the tent, a small orange glow appeared, waist height, off to the side. The flame hovered there, steady for a few seconds, then it started to move. Slowly, deliberately, they were waving it around, like they wanted us to see it. I couldn't look away, just stared at it, terrified to make a sound. Then the glow got brighter, much brighter. It went from a flicker to a glow, like they'd lit a torch or something worse. And then, thump, whatever they were holding hit the ground. A second later, whoosh, flames. The tent lit up around us. Heat surged in instantly, way faster than I expected. The fire wasn't small, it was spreading, fast. That finally snapped me out of it. "Tikki, wake up!" She shot up, confused, then immediately realized what was happening. No time to think, no time to scream. We threw the tent flap open and scrambled out, tossing gear and clothes and anything we could onto the dirt. Tikki grabbed one of the water jugs and dumped it on the flames while I stomped on anything still burning. Eventually, we got it under control, but half the tent was already gone. I grabbed the flashlight and started scanning the desert around us, heart hammering, looking for them, but there was nothing. No footsteps, no silhouette in the distance, just cold, empty night. Tikki was already packing. I didn't blame her. I jumped in to help and we started speed walking in what we hoped was the direction of the truck. There were no landmarks, no trail, just black desert. After maybe 10 minutes of walking in blind silence, it happened again. That scream. The same one from the first 2 nights. Only this time it didn't stop. It kept going. It sounded like an animal in pain. Constant, endless. Then another scream, and another. They came from behind us. And they were different. Different voices, different things. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed Tikki's arm and picked up the pace. By some miracle, we found the truck. I don't even remember the last few steps. I just remember throwing everything into the back and slamming the doors. I drove, fast as I dared on that uneven dirt road. The high beams barely helped. Every bend felt like it might flip us. But I didn't care. We had to get out. Finally, the road smoothed out. We hit pavement, and I didn't slow down until I saw headlights. Other people, civilization. Tikki was holding it together, but I could tell she was on the edge. Her eyes were glassy, her hands shaking. I tried to comfort her, but honestly, I wasn't doing much better. We did call the police, reported everything. They filed it. That's all they could do. All I can think about is this. If I wasn't such a light sleeper, Tikki and I could have died out there, burned alive in the middle of the desert. My mom's lived in America ever since she left Mexico. But the thing is, I don't really know much about her life before that. And honestly, I'm starting to think that's by design. She never talks about her past, ever. Ask her about it, and she'll either laugh it off with a joke or change the subject so smoothly you barely notice. Growing up, my dad used to say it was because she had a rough childhood, something better left untouched. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But as I got older, that curiosity grew, and the more I paid attention, the more I realized just how good she was at dodging those questions. Even at family gatherings, she could steer an entire conversation away with just a sentence. Here's what I do know. She grew up in a small border town in northern Mexico near Texas. Rough place by reputation. One of those towns where stories get buried in the sand and no one asks too many questions. The closest I've ever gotten to learning about her family was a joke she used to tell when I was younger. My dad's side were the politicians. My mom's side were the crooks. Never could tell which was which. I laughed at the time, thought it was just her being cynical. But now I'm not so sure it was a joke. Her dad supposedly worked for the government in some capacity. That's all she's ever said. And she never spoke about her mother. Not once. The only other breadcrumb I have is a name. I'm not going to write it out here, so let's just call him... I was maybe 10 or 11 when I first heard it. Woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. As I passed the living room, I heard my mom's voice. Quiet. Focused. She was speaking in Spanish. I didn't understand it. But she said Arb's name, multiple times. Not like she was talking to him. More like she was talking about him. All the lights were off. I couldn't see her, just hear her voice floating through the dark. Even though I knew it was her, something about it felt off, unsettling. I flipped the light switch. She didn't flinch, didn't yell or even react like I'd startled her. She just turned and looked at me, with this cold, sharp glare I'd never seen on her face before. Go back to bed, she said, and I did. That was the end of it. No explanation, no questions, no more mention of That's all I know about her past. A bitter joke, a vague government job, and the name What I'm about to tell you happened almost exactly a year ago, and lately it's been eating at me. I've lived in Arizona my whole life. This happened about a year after I graduated college. I was driving through the desert on my way to meet up with one of my old college friends. It was a long drive. We're talking hours. Endless desert, open highway, that buzzing, lonely silence you only get in the middle of nowhere. I was tired of music. Podcasts aren't really my thing, so I started cycling through my contacts, calling random friends, a couple girls I'd been talking to, just to kill time. Eventually, I called my mom. We both love soccer, so we ended up talking about the upcoming Champions League matches. She knows the game, like really knows it. We can go back and forth for hours about tactics, formations, rivalries. It's one of the few things we always click on. Then all of a sudden I saw something ahead. 2 pickup trucks blocking the road, not side by side. Blocking it. There wasn't any sign of a crash, and nothing about it looked accidental. My gut tightened. I slowed the car down. Mom was still talking on the phone, totally unaware. I hadn't said anything yet. I stopped the car, maybe 50 feet away, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Part of me thought maybe someone needed help. The other part of me was screaming, "Don't get out." Before I could decide what to do, 3 men jumped out from the trucks, guns drawn. I froze. Then behind me, headlights. Another car speeding up behind mine, boxing me in. I was unarmed, alone. Middle of nowhere. There was no fight to be had, just survival. He tapped the barrel of his gun against my window. Once, twice, motioning for me to get out. The other 2 stood back just a bit, forming this quiet, menacing triangle around me. I raised my hand slowly, got out of the car. I didn't say a word, didn't breathe too loud. By then, the car that had been following me pulled up and parked a little ways back, closing off my escape. One of the men barked something in Spanish. I had no idea what he said. And in that moment, I hated myself. Hated that I never learned Spanish. Hated that I couldn't even understand the people holding me at gunpoint. It's one of the biggest regrets I carry as a Mexican American, and right then, it felt like it could get me killed. But even without the words, the meaning was clear. Hands up. Empty your pockets. Don't try anything stupid. I handed over everything. Phone, wallet, keys, whatever else I had on me. And just like that, I was stranded. alone in the desert. No phone, no way out, no help coming. Then, one of them climbed into my truck, and something clicked. I hadn't ended the call with my mom. The truck was still running, which meant she was still on the line. I watched through the window as the man reached toward the screen, like he was going to hang up, but then he stopped. His hand hovered, then pulled back. He was listening. And then, I swear on my life, he started talking. Mouth moving, calm, focused. He was talking to my mom, and they were having a conversation. I couldn't hear a word. Windows shut, doors closed, but I knew the rhythm, the tone, Spanish. And then I saw his lips say it. He said that name, repeated it, just like my mom had that night in the living room years ago. He wanted to be sure, like he was confirming something. The other two must have noticed something was up, because they stopped watching me and walked over to the truck. The man inside rolled the window down, spoke to the others while staring right at me. Whatever he said didn't last long. They all turned and looked at me, sizing me up like I was a puzzle they'd finally solved. Then he hung up the call. They walked back over. One of them handed me back my stuff. Everything. Phone, keys, ID, everything except the cash from my wallet. And as he handed it back, he smiled. Not a warm smile, not a kind one, just amused. Tax, he said in a thick accent, like it was a punchline, and I've never been happier to lose money in my life. As soon as I got in the car and drove off, all three vehicles, the trucks and the one behind me, took off in the opposite direction, disappearing into the desert, leaving no trace. I tried to memorize their license plates, but there were none. Nothing. Just dust and silence. After driving a few minutes in stunned silence, I called my mom back. I needed answers. She picked up like nothing had happened, said she'd threatened to call the police, that she was tracking my location, and that's why they let me go. Bullshit. I called her out immediately, told her I wasn't stupid. She stuck to her story, said most of the call was her pleading in Spanish, said she was bluffing for my sake. I didn't believe a word of it, but what could I do? I asked her to call the cops. She said she would. Eventually, the call ended, and I drove the rest of the way in dead silence. No music, no calls, just my own thoughts rattling around inside my head. For a while, I tried to block it out, convince myself it didn't mean anything, but I couldn't hold that lie forever. Now, I'm almost certain my mom has a history with someone, something, some group. A cartel? A gang? I don't know. But the past she left behind in Mexico? I don't think it ever really left her. And worse, I don't think it ever really left me either. She knows I'm not stupid, so I don't know how long she thinks she can keep pretending. Part of me wants to just ask her straight up. But the other part is terrified of what the truth might drag into my life, what it might cost, who it might wake up.